Are we already recording? Oh. Nice. We're gonna wing it.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess y'all gonna have to hear us wing it. And welcome Professor Don's class to our one-time podcast we like to call To Be Determined. Like I said, it's a one-time podcast. So, we're your hosts, Talia,
Carly, Eldridge,
Luciana.
Today we're just going to discuss with you guys My Sons by Dr. E.J. David from our textbooks Echoes of Alaska. So Lucy, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I know the first thing that I read, I understand is that the guy that wrote the essay, it's a native guy, and he starts talking about, starts writing a letter for two of his sons. One of them is Filipino, and one of them American.
They're mixed.
A mixed.
So we hope you guys really enjoy. Sit back, listen to us discuss this essay.
Lucy really just gave us a brief overview of what it's about, but let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's go in between the lines. So it really does talk about, it discusses things such as like race, culture, and how stereotypes and their histories can really affect people's communities. Let's go in depth about their lineages, and I really liked how we talked about like different stereotypes that they might be facing. So what do you guys have to say about that?
Yeah, I like how he started out with how he would address his sons out of anger and really set up that like aggressive parent stereotype, and how he talks about how he doesn't mean to be angry. Let me find that one.
No, because let's talk about it, because why are parents so aggressive? Like, I like how he really does say, like, I don't mean to be angry at you guys, and all those emotions that he's directed to his sons, he was directing it to himself, and which needs to be vocalized by parents, because someone like, why are y'all so angry for?
Right? Page
Yes.
76, he says, I hope you don't misinterpret my frustration, my yelling, and my stern, firm ways of communicating as mean-spirited or ill-intentioned.
I think one of the reasons that he's angry is because it's not all about their son. It's about their like his grandparents, or how how he was treated, and that's how he was treating his sons, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then like he further goes into talking about like the history of how both of his children's ancestries, they all went into assimilation. Like Filipino culture, they were colonized multiple times, and then we already know, since we live in Alaska, we know the history of indigenous people being colonized by the Spanish. I like how he really does go into depth about that and how that really will affect how people see them.
Yeah, also related with that, in Mexico also we were colonized by Spanish people, and they were like, they treat their own land like as if they were theirs, and they till now they're still like racist towards us, even though we were raised in there, and they've been coming here and say that to us, you guys have these things and all that stuff, and they still talk about it till today.
Yes.
Yeah, I really related to when he talks about like really getting into tune with their Alaska Native culture, coming from my mom is Alaska Native, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, so and just really getting in touch with the culture. I didn't grow up really too much into my Alaska Native culture, but so I related to that.
Yeah, like Lucy, you come from Mexico, correct?
Yeah.
So you did grow up with the culture. How did that impact you, since you're now like out of your culture now in Alaska?
Well, when I was in Mexico, well, my mom and my both parents are indigenous. They were raised talking in their own tongue and stuff. And when they came to the city, it was very hard for them to learn Spanish. And I'm glad that they found good people to help them to adjust to the new life that they got. But yeah, I think that was good. But they still, till today, I think they have some towns in there that they when they come to the city, they are very racist because they are indigenous and they don't understand Spanish.
So what other language do they speak?
It's called Tricky. That's their tongue. Yeah, they speak. I don't understand. I do understand everything they say, but I don't. I
You
don't
can't
speak it.
See,
Wow.
that's the
Yeah.
same for me. Because, like, I'm Haitian, and my mom, like, she's, like, 100% Haitian. And then she moved here to Alaska. She lived in New York, where it was, like, really populated with a lot of other cultures. But after she left, she couldn't remember anything. But, like, she can understand, and she can, like, speak a little bit. But she never, like, relayed anything to me or any of my siblings. So I didn't get to get raised with any of that culture. And now that I'm older, I'm trying to, like, hey, mom, like, what is this? Da, 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 da. Just trying to, like, teach me, because she knows it, but she's just not relaying it to us. Like, I learned more Spanish growing up than my own, like, my mom's native tongue. So I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I like how the author was implementing with his kids. He's like, I want to teach you guys both of your cultures. I'm not going to let one override the other. Even if you do live in Alaska, I'm still going to have you guys learn about your Filipino culture. I'm still going to have you learn about your indigenous culture. So I think he would make sure that you're proud of who you are, because living here is honestly kind of hard, because there's such a big diaspora of people. It's kind of hard to find your community if you're like kind of like singled out.
Well, actually, when I started reading, I didn't know that Native people were being racist here, or they were like suffering racism here. I have one of my friends that is black Native and black half black, and he used to say that when he applied to job, they didn't accept his application because he was Native.
Wow.
Yeah, you know that that was happening.
Like people, I just like some let people know, like, the United States is very racist, and depending on where you are, it's gonna look different. Like living here, people are like, they're not gonna be flat out racist like how they in South. They're like, I don't like you because of your color. People are not gonna be like that up here. They're gonna be very down low about it, especially in the school system. Like my parents, they worked in the school system, very racist. They left.
It's ingrained, yeah.
It is literally ingrained. Like the people at the top, you don't see it. Just like crazy how like we don't really hear about the hate crimes that happen here.
And just swept under the rug.
It is swept under the rug, and it's so important to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because like all those people, they don't have justice.
Yeah.
And it's just it's not really fair.
Speaking of hate crimes, I didn't really know about any that he was referring to in the reading.
I've never heard a single one. I was like, why isn't this on the news?
Right?
And it's so sad, because like these are like, especially when it's like indigenous crime, like, and we live on their
Indigenous
land.
Right.
We should be hearing more about them, like how all these like missing cases, it's mostly indigenous women. Out of like everybody, it's mostly them. And you don't hear about it, especially in the city. Like, did you hear more about it, like living out of Anchorage?
Living in a smaller community, we all knew each other and each other's business, so we never really had like missing and hate crimes like that.
What do you guys think could be done right now? Like, why do you guys think it's so important for our children or like the future generation to be educated about things like this? Like, how can you think we can prepare them? They're going to be treated differently. How do you think we can prepare, like, just like everybody, like how to treat people if they come from a different place than you? Like, how do you think we can prepare them for being compared, like, even to like white peers?
I think essentially it needs to really start with the parents and teaching your children.
Exactly.
And I think he does a really good job of going through how he's going to parent his children and get them through
And
navigating. Yeah.
And like right now, lots of parents don't like the whole diversity talk in classrooms. Like I'm a early childhood education major, and we're talking about it right now. Like parents are like it's mostly white parents, which is crazy.
Right.
Like they are so against talking about like diversity. Like my child shouldn't have to like say that they're white. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, but why? Like that? I'm like, I know like white supremacy and like white culture is really deep rooted in racism, but you guys still have so many other things that make you guys who you are, other than racism.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm a proud black woman. Period. At the end of the day, I want my children to be educated, and I want their peers to be educated, to not treat them differently or touch their hair without permission, which is so important to make sure you're educating them and having those discussions. Like, well, you can't do this because one, you're gonna either you can be disrespecting their culture, their religion, or just you can just flat out be disrespecting them. So I think it's really important to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And like take the time, like if they have like a question, don't be like, oh my god, I have to shield them away. Like, because when he was like, even in the book, he was saying that like he was kind of hiding racism away from them in a sense.
Yeah, and he talks about like how it was uncomfortable for the child to have asked him, and like how he didn't know how to
respond in a sense.
And I think parents really need to look back on themselves and how they can go about having these kind of conversations with their children.
Exactly. Lucy, you have any thoughts about that?
I think no matter how old they are or how young they are, I think it's important that the parents talk to them, even if they're like 2 years old. They already understand some stuff, and you should teach them like what is good or what's wrong for them, or what's good thing to say to people, even and see what each culture is important for each people, and teach them like how to respect that.
Exactly, and because there's always a way to say things, like it's called like age appropriate, like developmentally age appropriate discussions, and that's like you have like a topic and you make sure you're saying I'm not saying dumb it down, but you're watering it down enough that the kid can understand.
Right.
Because like there's no conversation can be broad enough or hard enough for you to not explain to a child.
Yeah, or too early.
Exactly, like that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Like, But he also mentioned like the Mount Denali rename.
Yeah.
That was insane how we went like into like the racist history of like whoever, we don't even care who was named after Mount McKinley. Like he was racist.
Yeah.
And that's crazy how people were honoring him.
And publicly
honoring him.
And
on a mountain that he literally couldn't stand Native people, couldn't stand Filipino people. Like, and you're honoring him in a indigenous land. It truly did not make sense to me, and that really leads into how people, even like in America, the UK, it's very common to have like memorials of people who were literally like racist,
and like
no one knows,
idealizing or like idolizing them, and not holding them accountable.
Exactly, right? Like take them down. Like that's why I was so happy when he was like when Mount Denali got renamed. Like I was super young, I had no idea what was going on. But now that I'm older and I know the history behind of why, that made me feel so happy because that's one more thing that the indigenous community got to reclaim.
Right, and we don't have to, but that can lead into not even learning that in school. Because before this class, when we learned about Mount McKinley being renamed, I had never really known
I didn't know either.
Why or when or how it was changed.
So, like, that's so important, especially as Alaskans. Like, it is so sad how, like, I am just not being educated about the cultures that surround me every single day. Like, for me, like, I was raised a lot with indigenous culture when I was a lot younger. And as I got older, I just kind of started, like, because it wasn't getting taught anymore. Like, I was surrounded by, like, really big indigenous community. Like, I wore a cuspa growing up because, like, those are the people I was surrounded with. That is a culture appreciation, not appropriation. Let me make that clear. That is, because those were the people I was surrounding me that were encouraging me, like, where's your cuspa cat? Like, it's Friday. Where is it at? Blah, 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 blah. Like, I was surrounded by so many strong indigenous people that, like, and they were always sharing their history. Like I literally learned how to pluck a ptarmigan and eat it. Like, those are the things that, like, kids in Alaska need to be learning. Like, of course, with their history as well, but, like, we need to be learning how to respect their culture, learn their culture, and learn how to share it as well.
Yeah.
Because we can't, like, just, like, have, like, oh, here's our history, move on. You can't be doing that. And there's never, like, opportunities to, like, relay that information as well. So, point blank period, we need to start implementing that better.
Yeah. One other point that, with the Mount Denali naming and, like, people knowing and not, like, holding McKinley accountable, like, on a downscale of it, growing up in a small community, like, there were people who, like, did wrong and you knew, and people wouldn't care.
They're trying to keep everybody close-knit. They're trying not to break the peace.
And I think it's really easy to fall into that, which is probably why it happened in the first place with McKinley. Yeah, that's a
That's
crazy topic.
That was a hot one.
Right?
I was getting a little hot there for a second. Talk about teaching our children to be proud of their culture. What do you guys think that means?
Talk to them that it doesn't matter that how where they come from. They should be proud where their ancestors came from. And like me, being Mexican, and since my dad, my parents are like indigenous, they teach us a lot about what they used to do in the back in the day when they were still in the town. Um, and right now I'm very proud, like we have like weddings or we have like some parties when we still do like the way they used to do it when they were young. We still try to do that. We still try to revive the traditions that they used to have.
Yeah, because y'all are the culture bearers. Like,
Mhm.
and I feel like right now, like people, like especially I don't know Gen Z, we lacking a little bit. Whenever I see like people talking about their culture and they're like, oh my God, we're the ones who have to start planning the reunions.
Mhm.
We're the ones who have to start doing the parties. Blah 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 blah. Like, we are the culture bearers. And like, I don't think any of us are in the right mind right now. They're like, we are the future, and now we're preparing our children, which is crazy that some of us are having kids. Like we're literally culture bearing and sharing our culture now because our parents are getting older, our relatives are getting older, so it's literally our job now to pass it on.
Yeah.
But sometimes that can't happen because we're oppressed with our culture.
Yeah.
Because even the doctor said like oppression leads to depression in people of color, which we all are. And I can definitely say that because living in a place where no one looks like you, you're gonna have a lot of self hate for yourself, especially as a young kid. Like my friend has straight hair, she's pale skinned, blah 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 blah. Like why don't I look like that? And that's why it's so important to have those parents to have those conversations with their kids. It is okay to be who you are. Everyone is different for a reason. That's why it's so important to be stable in who you are and establish that early on so then they don't have to be struggling with their identity in the future. So, but yeah, and I just love the way he was writing to his son because he was so straight, just straight aired with the entire thing.
Right.
When he was pulling out them stereotypes out of his butt, I was like, how many stereotypes? He was like, these are like the big what ifs. I know I'm going a little crazy, but I'm glad because that puts all those stereotypes that his kids are gonna face. He put it in perspective for them quickly because he was like, this is what you're going to face. I know you live in Alaska, but this is what you're going to face, and I need you to be prepared.
Right, yeah, the harsh reality.
So, what else do you guys think have on this topic?
I know it's a little bit sad for my culture because I think I have a lot of cousins that they are forgetting what like our traditions that we used to have. I feel like I'm not too young, but I'm a little young, but I also forgot a little bit of my stuff that I used to do. All my grandmothers and all grandparents are right now dead and stuff, and we sometimes we are forgetting like what are our traditions and stuff. And even for my little brother, he doesn't like anything of our culture. He start getting more into American stuff and all that. And he's forgetting all about his own culture. So it's very sad for us, and we will remind him that where he came from and stuff.
Really talks about that, like how self-hating behavior also leads hate to their community.
He really went into depth on that, and I really liked the way he articulated his
thoughts in a sense because he was like I said he laid it down so like bluntly. He was like, as he is indigenous, he was like, you guys will be thought of as lazy, you guys will be thought of domestic abusers. And how he went into like he even like kind of dabbled into talking about like toxic masculinity, like don't hit women, don't hit children, do not, as my sons, I do not want you guys to fall in that toxic masculinity. How he Dang, there's just so much to talk about just in this little, because he just goes over so much and it's just so much wisdom and so much to think about. Because after I finished it, I was like, oh my God.
Right, I had to take a minute and think about all the things that I just read. It was so dense
and in depth.
Yeah.
About so many things at one in just one little excerpt.
Right.
Because it's just, and we didn't even get to read about his daughters.
Yeah.
And I don't got the heart to read that because I know it's going.
Right.
It's
That's
going to
a
hurt.
whole nother
Because this is
level.
Because this is from a man's perspective.
Right.
In a sense. And as women, I think this still related to us in a sense, as people of color. And I liked how he, instead of just telling them, like, this is how it's going to be, but he also gave them, like, tools, like, this is what you can do to make it better. Like, he said he wanted his sons to resist hate within their community. And to do that, he just said, you guys have to know who you are and be stable in it. Like, being educated about yourself, like, be educated about your culture.
Yeah.
And he also, because he really did talk a lot more about indigenous perspective of things, because he is indigenous, and how his wife is Filipina. He was talking about, like, you guys won't get the good stereotypes. I was like, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
Because he was like, you're not going to be called good at math. You're not going to be top of your class. I was like,
yeah.
But how do you guys, like, do you want to talk about that? Like, how we all, like, because we're all people of color here, like, they're, like, these stereotypes that our communities have, and if they impacted you in a sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of I feel, I don't know. I'm glad I haven't heard anything like to people say that to my face or something. But I have heard that some of people say that Latino community are very lazy sometimes, or like they don't have education or they don't go to college and stuff. And I'm like, I've never seen that before. But we all go to college, even if we're here, even if we came from city that it's not known like we have a lot of education, and a lot of people that work here are like more like construction, or they're known for being like cooker or all that stuff. But we do go to college, and we have like that stereotype that we don't get education enough.
Yeah. Me personally, obviously, I'm more white than I am Native, so like I've never had people refer to these stereotypes to me personally, but I've definitely seen it within my community and within like people that I grew up, like peers and like people I grew up with. Yeah, within my family and just like friends.
Can you say that, did it affect you in any way?
I think it was confusing to see, knowing that I was Native but I didn't look Native, and to see my friends who were. It was just confusing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, were you like, what were you questioning?
Like why these people are in these stereotypes, and it was like the big one was like drunk Native, lazy Native. Yeah, and it was really hard to try to understand at such a young age because I have all these Native family and friends that I'm growing up with, and I just don't understand. Yeah, why?
Yeah, okay. I love the way you went into, like, just the why. And which is, like we said, we keep articulating. It's important to have, for parents and to families, to have these conversations.
Right?
That it's going to happen. How are you going to prepare your child for a cruel world that you're already living in?
Yeah, another thing, like, my mom never really talked about it with us, and my dad was white, so, like, he didn't either. But my mom, she just never really talked about that part of it with us.
You already know, for me, like, where does the list even start? But like we have, like, angry black women, lazy, criminal, like, the list honestly goes on and on and on. And for me, it really hasn't affected me much, but I know it's affected my family more. Like, my little sister, I was allowed to share this. She literally has been called, like, a monkey in school, called an ape, a cotton picker. She's transferring schools next year because it's that bad. Like, my dad followed out of our neighborhood. It's a nicer neighborhood. He was literally followed out our neighborhood because a policeman could not believe that we were living there. Getting called the N-word, having people ask me, do I have the N-word pass? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it truly does. When I was younger, I really didn't understand because I grew up majority around white people, and the only time I got to see black people was at church, and that was it. And that was like 2 days a week. It did influence me in a more of a negative way because I truly couldn't understand, like, why would you say that? Like, like my hair's fine. Like it's not messy. That's just how my hair is. And I started really asking those questions with my family. I'm like, why? What's the point? What's the reason? And educating myself to a point of who I am and what is my identity and how am I going to reflect it through just every day. That's when I really started to understand and where I am right now. Like I'm proud of my culture. I'm proud of my kinky hair, even though she's not on it every single day. I still love my skin. I used to hate my skin so much. Like I was like, why am I not light skinned like my sister? Like she a light bright, she is, but I was just like questioning. I was like, why? What? I just didn't understand the hate. Like you. Like I just couldn't understand why would you why are you gonna judge me just something I can't change?
Right, yeah, why do we have to be so cruel?
Especially like the kids.
Right?
I truly don't understand when adults be coming for kids. Like they can't change that.
Right?
They don't even know what you're talking about in a sense, and you're gonna let old mentalities from over, well, let me like put it 80 years ago, like segregation lady with the ball is like almost like 60, 80 years ago, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
That those mentalities are still fresh in some people's minds. Like people are still alive who were going through segregation, who were like part of the KKK, stuff like that. They're still alive and well, and they probably still have those same mentalities. And I just really don't understand how people are not giving those people who suffered from that justice. Like the Latino community, like the Asian community, especially with everything with COVID, like the hate crimes that were rampant during the quarantine. Yeah. Some of those people still haven't gotten justice, period. And to go more into that, because he did talk about abolishing those stereotypes.
Right.
Do you guys think that's possible?
I think we can all try. There's this piece that I've been looking at that has stood out to me. The oppressive systems in this world will try to convince you that the source of your problems is the other oppressed groups in society instead of oppression itself.
Like he's so heavy,
right?
The way he speaks. Because for me, when I asked myself that question, I was like, girl, I don't know. Because I think everyone has their own opinion. And, like, it's kind of hard to change it. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions. And, like, we're in America, free speech, which is a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Because people can use that against you, and people can use that for you. Right. And most times, it's going to be used against you. But I think that, like you said, if we work together,
right,
it can be better. But, like, we live in America. So yeah. It's kind of hard.
Good luck.
Good luck. All I can say is educate your children, the future, the younger people that you are influencing in everyday life. Educate them to be better people.
Right. Just be a good person.
Exactly.
All starts in your house, in the place where you live. That's where your education starts.
Yes, and like I feel like it's not really valued anymore to teach people. Like education is literally at our fingertips, and most people don't even utilize it. And most people are like, when they see stuff, like I've seen it all the time on TikTok, like I ain't reading all that. Like you're not gonna take the time to educate yourself about something,
right.
Something that someone is so fiery and passionate about. You're not gonna take the time to at least research about it.
I think that is a huge thing because with all the things going on in the world and you could have such a big impact if you educate yourself. And yeah,
because knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And people like use it against you if you're not like, because like something that all in common, people like stereotype that our communities aren't smart. And they literally, there's like, I can't remember what community it's for. They said, if you don't want this community to know anything, put it in a book. Really cannot wrap my mind around that and how people of color in general are not valued by our society right now. And that is so evident with like Jim Crow laws coming back. Stunned me to my core.
Yeah.
Why are we bringing that back? In a sense, America is going backwards. And our author, he really did make that plain and clear, talking about how more indigenous people here are put in jail more than anybody.
Yeah, I think that's insane. And when he went into the statistics of the native population being the smallest, but their incarceration rates are the largest. That is insane.
Because they got nowhere else to go. Because y'all keep taking their houses, taking their land. Like, what do you expect? And I think sometimes people want to be incarcerated because that's a place to lay their head. That's a place for them to get food. That's a place of protection, even though it is incarceration. Honestly, sad how America just doesn't value them. Like, we don't have a good, like, what is it? Homeless care system.
Yeah. No.
Or anything. There's like, everyone has to fend for themselves, whether it be healthcare, whether it be like education, housing. Like, everyone has to fend for themselves, and some people don't get to have that.
And I think it's insane to think that people think of themselves as higher than these people who are in these situations, and they can't do anything about it.
Which is, we just gotta be kind to people
Right.
at this point, and I think it is truly a blessing living here because we really don't really see that kind of stuff. Like when I was talking like Jim Crow and just like, I feel like living in Alaska, we do see homeless people, but like in the lower 48, it is so bad because sometimes you just see streets of just people in tents, like literally like starving. They look like zombies at sometimes because they're just like blank face, just walking down the street because they have nothing. And sometimes there's nothing that we as civilians can do.
Yeah.
But like that's why we can like volunteer our time, advocate, just like educating others. Like $1 will help, even if you got 50 cents, it helps.
I think it's actually illegal here to give the homeless
It
money.
is.
It is.
I couldn't believe that when my roommate told me that.
Like there's literally like a sign where I literally pass, like I'm probably gonna pass it today. There's like literally a sign on like an intersection that literally says like, do not like give. I think they call it handouts, which is I think is even worse. I'm like, really?
What?
They need it, but like also it's a safety thing too because people are like crossing it, like the person is crossing the street and they can end up getting hit. Right. But that's why my dad, he doesn't care. Like he's always like stopped and he always gives it to them. Or like instead like my friends, we give them food.
Right,
or, like,
leftovers.
Yes, we always have like food in the bag or like have like little wellness bags to give them because that's gonna help them more than the money will in a sense. Because like they're not like, what are they gonna do when they get into the store? You know they're gonna get tagged and followed. So giving them like bags of like food or like wellness bags like with socks, toothpaste, I think that's gonna benefit them more than the money. Like real time, I think just like for all of our people, like incarceration and like one kidnapping of indigenous people is one for you. For me is like police brutality, obviously, with gun violence and rules, which we just literally had another case today. A little boy, he was like 16, he literally got shot in the face twice this morning because he went to the wrong address to pick up his siblings. He was 16, shot in the face twice, went 3 doors down to ask for help, no one helped him. And that's like another thing, even though it's not really part of what we're talking about, gun violence in America and how it's so scary for people to just live out here.
Right?
Especially in schools.
Especially in schools, which is such a blessing living here because we're like probably one of the most caring states. And we've never had an instance of someone shooting up a school. I don't think. We've had threats.
A couple weeks ago, there was a middle schooler who brought a gun to school, but I don't know if he made threats or not.
See, that's happened at King Tech. They've had a kid I think he had a bunch of cannabis and he had a loaded shotgun in his backpack. So he didn't do anything, but still, we have all these close instances. That's too close to home. And
I think that's very clear after the amount of, even just this year, school shooting. I could not imagine the fear of having to go to school, especially like in the lower 48.
That is so scary. Like, I don't know how it is in Mexico. Do they have gun violence? Like, do they have like
not that I heard of. They don't have carrying a gun. It's illegal in there.
Hallelujah.
You have to have like a permit. A permit.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't get guns to anyone, even if you're 18. We don't get them.
And we really have to understand. I'm glad that our generation is, in a sense, waking up to these types of things. Because I think it's so important for us to be calling out these problems. Like gun violence, Jim Crow. The whole thing with the Indian Child Act being overturned.
That is...
No one is talking about that. like indigenous children are literally about to be going to be taken from their families.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been like 60 years since it's been instated.
Yeah.
I think it's been even shorter. I can't really remember, and I wish I had the actual statistics for that. And no one is talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, these kids are literally about to be taken away from their families because they might be seeing their families are inadequate to take care of them. Like, some things like that, I feel like our generation is starting to wake up to. We are, like, doing the things, or we're taking the steps and the actions to rebel.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I don't want to say excited. I'm just ready and sitting, waiting to see what we're going to do now.
See what kind of changes.
Because lots of us are turning 18. Lots of us are turning into adults now. And we are the power is starting to fall into our hands. And I just want to see, what are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
Are we going to flub it up, in a sense? Are we actually going to make those changes? Going to stop, or is it going to be molded into something different? What do you guys think about that?
I think there's still more people that are racist. I know that I met a lot of guys. Well, no, I haven't met a lot of guys. But I think they, even when they're still young, I think they're still racist. Yeah, I think they still have that mentality. Some of them do.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of equality, and like he said in the essay, it is still very much prevalent in your lives, no matter how much you think it's just like in the past and history.
Yeah, because like I said, it's undercover.
Yeah.
Like, y'all just don't be paying attention for real. And like, some people who are privileged, why would they pay attention to it? It has nothing to do with them.
Right.
So why would they have to pay attention to it, in a sense?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that starts with the problem.
Yes, call it out. Like he said, didn't he say, like, you guys have to find the source of the problem rather than getting mad within your community and the people who are doing it? Like, look for the source, nip it in the bud, replace it with something new.
Yeah.
And he closes talking about his emotions and how he talks to them and how he's not doing it out of anger, he's doing it out of fear. And I think that's really what it is at the end of the day. Our parents are scared for our future.
Yeah.
And they are saying all these things. They're always so strict, like how like ethnic parents are strict, that whole thing. It's because they're scared for their kids. They don't know how the world or how other people are going to treat their kids. I got an all sisters, so I didn't have to go through the whole like son, don't wear you do rag outside, don't sag your pants, blah 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 blah. Like, I didn't have to go through that talk. But if I had a brother, I know he probably would have to go through that discussion because he could get targeted. It's just like people in color in general, we have to be tough in a sense, and I think it's not even fair how people of color and their children have to, in a sense, just grow up faster than their white peers because they have to be prepared for a world totally different.
Yeah.
They have to know how to talk correctly. They have to know how to dress properly. Well, just like everyone is bummy in America. Like, we dress like in sweats, but some of us don't have that benefit. Like, I can't outside wearing a backpack in a store. I don't think anybody can, for real. But like, I know like I'm gonna be targeted more compared to my white counterpart. So I really like how he just tells his sons that don't be discouraged after all this information I just dropped on y'all.
Yeah.
I need you guys to, one, be strong, be there for each other, be there for your community. Because he's not just leaving them with all this like sad information. Like, if I was his son, I'd be like, hey, Daddy, all of this, like, what am I supposed to do with this information? He's like, use it to educate yourself. Move forward.
Yeah.
Don't look back. Grow. Like, that's something that I feel like people miss.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do with this information? Use it. Yeah. Utilize it. Educate other people. There's so many things.
Make the world a better place.
Girl, what did Michael Jackson say? Look at the world and make that change. Do it. That's all I can say. But this was really an influential piece.
Yeah.
And I do love it, and I definitely want to look more into this work.
Yeah,
I truly love
I
this piece.
really was not expecting it to be like this.
Thank you, Professor, for
Yes,
recommending this.
thank
You
you.
ate down with this recommendation, and I loved it. Lucy, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think you covered it all. I think also that with this kind of information, we should just keep passing it on. Like I could show this piece to my sister, and she can recommend this to her friends and stuff. And we can educate ourselves, all of us.
I think that was it, guys.
Concludes our discussion.
From To Be Determined, the one-time podcast with Talia, Carly, and Lucy.
Thank you.
So thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys learned something. Wow. I'm scared to look at the time.
It's 47 minutes.
Yes. Hope y'all enjoyed. Bye, guys.